7:04 p.m. Note that this meeting is being both audio and video recorded. And is there anyone in the audience recording this meeting? Good, we're good to go. All who are able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you. Would the superintendent please take roll?
Dr. Kraft-Reese. Here. Ms. DiTomaso. Here. Mr. Farley.
Here.
Mr. Gazzillo.
Here.
Mr. Hagmeyer. Mr. Hopper.
Here.
Mr. Locatell.
Here.
Mrs. Latazori. Here. Mr. Less.
Here.
Mr. Peters will not be here. Mrs. Tucker. Here. Mr. Wagner.
Here.
Mr. Armorquist.
Here.
As a reminder, we have an open seat in Cummington and an open seat in Washington. I don't see Mr. Bartels this evening. I do see...
Send his regrets.
Oh, he sent his regrets. I do see our CBEA rep. Hi, Mr. Hogue.
Hello.
And I do see our student rep. We have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. Mike, you can sit at the table if you want, Mr. Hogue. The CBA reps.
Okay.
I'll take over.
Is he sitting?
You have to speak.
Do you have a speech prepared? I hope you're joking. With you, I am. Thank you. Okay, the chair certifies that the agenda is valid in accordance with Mass General Law, Chapter 38, Section 18 through 20, 24, open meeting law. At this time, responses from the audience. Seeing none, we'll move on to the next agenda item, which is student reports from Ms. Peralta.
All right, so school is underway, so that means I actually have stuff to report on, which is great. Chromebooks were recently distributed, as we all know, between September 5th and 7th, and I know students are enjoying using them. I personally really love having something to work on in class. Fall sports are also underway, and auditions for the play were held September 5th. And then tomorrow on the 14th, the football team will be having their first home game at 7, so I hope everyone can go.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Hannah? Okay, remember, please make a motion to accept the minutes of the regular meeting of August 23rd, 2018. That's our next order of business.
Move to accept the minutes of the regular meeting of August 23rd, 2018 as printed.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Remember, please dispense with the warrants.
Move to approve warrant number PR 2019-5 dated September 6th, 2018, payroll in the amount of $484,495.60. Second.
$584,495.60. Okay, we have a motion and a second to approve warrant number PR 2019-5. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? One abstention, two abstentions. Motion carries.
Move to approve warrant number PR 2019-5D dated September 6th, 2018. Accounts payable in the amount of $107,162.04.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve warrant number PR 2019-5 Delta. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Two abstentions. Motion carries.
Move to approve warrant number AP 2019-5 dated September 14th, 2018. Accounts payable in the amount of $393,923.53.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve warrant number AP 2019-5. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Two abstentions, the motion carries. Next order of business is gifts and donations. Would a member please make the motion?
Be it resolved that the Central Berkshire Regional School Committee accept the donation of $650 to Kittredge Elementary School from Action for Healthy Kids for the game as recommended by the district treasurer.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve gift for Action for Healthy Kids for the game grant. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Motion carries. Next order of business is report of the chair. As the superintendent noted, we still have a vacancy in the town of Washington and the town of Covington. We're going to talk to item 4 next. School committee election is coming up in November. To this date, I'm knowledgeable that we haven't had any nominations come in from the town of Washington or Covington. Like I said, this is the last meeting too. And we have 2 seats in Dalton that will possibly be open. So that can be rectified by write-ins, so write-in campaign for someone. It can be rectified by, if we still have those positions open, by appointing someone who comes forward to the committee. So,
Question.
Sure.
This ratification is for a quorum if 4 seats are not filled.
well, the vice chair and I are having discussions on that. But basically, according to our attorney, we have 15 seats in the committee. The quorum is 8. Quorum for voting on the operating budget, final budget adoption is still 10.
Okay, so the quorum stays fixed at 8.
Yeah.
It doesn't vary depending on the total people currently there.
That's his interpretation, and that was after speaking with one of the offices in Boston about this. I can't remember whether it was the AG's office. I can ask him to write up an outline for us, so we have it.
All right.
That way we'll all square on it.
I can go to the Washington Town Hall Monday during their meeting and mention to the selectmen that we need someone from their town.
I mean, I believe there ought to be latitude for adjustment if the seats are vacant and we can't fill them. Then we have to fill the Washington seat now in over a year and a half. So it hurts us. So that's that. Now, the next one, number 3, is request for policy and school committee to consider formation of new standing committee. That's actually a request that the chair has. And what I'm looking for is based upon a couple of things. First of all, we've heard about, I got to get my head together because I wasn't planning to be here tonight, but thanks to Florence, my trip was canceled. So this is basically based upon several things that we've had happen in the country over the past years in the district. But I'm looking for a subcommittee, a standing subcommittee. It doesn't have to be that, but I'd like policy to consider this topic and make a recommendation to the school committee. If we had a standing committee, it has to be changed in our bylaws. We could take a look at, I don't want to put any more strain on the committee. Honestly, our subcommittees don't really meet as regularly as they used to when I joined the committee 8 years ago. We used to have subcommittee meetings usually at least once a month or every other week. So we've kind of backed off from that, I think, more in the interest of this time and the administration's time. But anyway, what I'm looking for is something to address basically three areas. One is student and staff safety and security on school property and school buses. We have an excellent representation from our towns, our town police forces, our Mass State Police, Trooper Canada runs our committee on school safety. So I think we're doing a great job, but is there anything more that we can be doing? What can we do to proactively counter threats? Is there other, can we take a look at whether districts are doing it across the country? How are our perimeter guards, the buildings, the property? So that's one thing I think the committee ought to study. The other thing is environmental impacts on student learning and on student and staff comfort. It's warm in this room this evening, and our students feel this warmth, feel greater warmth in the late afternoon or early afternoon after the sun's been striking the building, and I know that impacts learning. We all know it does. So, is there something better we can do to help alleviate that situation in our schools? Not only the temperature, but the air quality. We've taken measurements. I don't know that we have. I know of this situation at Kittredge many years ago where a parent actually took their student out because there was an issue with allergens. And the building couldn't resolve it, so that we lost that student to a private school, actually. So it's a real concern. I was in a student-athlete meeting about a week and a half ago in Kona, and it was stifling in A9, A-quarter. So I just can't imagine students having to learn in that environment. Now, fortunately, if the Wacona building project goes through, that ought to be rectified. But we've got other buildings in the district that we need to look at. And I'm not saying the administration isn't doing a good job in this, but is there anything more? Is there more support that we give the administration and our staff and students? The final thing is, and I call this a triad. The final thing is the social environment in each of our schools. This is an age-old problem, and we're not going to get away from bullying in total. We're not going to get away from social conflict. But it is an impediment to growth and learning. Emotional development, emotional intelligence is a key word today in industry. So what can we do to better support our families? We've had a family come in here several times. We've heard about tweets, and we've heard about emails that have come to our attention. I don't want to comment on that, but what can we do to better serve our students in terms of, especially social media? Social media is really, I've got opinions on that I won't express, but it is an impediment. So I want to ask policy to study this and come back to the school committee. It would be nice if we had that in time for our organization in November, so that we can have a different set of standing committees, if you will, or at least another one, which means that they would have to move out right away and be ready for at least the first reading the end of October and the second reading in November. Now, that's just my suggested timeline. If they can't do that, they can't. But, so that's all I have to say on that. Okay. So the next order of business is subcommittee reports and recommendations. Curriculum is up first.
We do have a meeting scheduled for next Thursday at 5:30 at district office. That will be our first meeting, and we'll schedule more following. That's it.
And any questions for Barbara? Okay. Finance.
Yes, we have not met since the last school committee meeting. Our next meeting will take place on the 27th at Beckett, Washington at 5:30. Melissa, is that
Yes.
confirmed? At 5:30. And I'll just remind the committee that, we're still accepting ideas and thoughts around the budget instructions. So please submit anything. I don't believe we've received anything yet from the rest of the committee. But continue to think about it. Until the next school committee meeting to submit.
And just a reminder, submitting through email is not the preferred way. You've got to make sure that if you do, the best thing is to come to the meeting and make the suggestions. But if you can't make the meeting and you want to make sure that you're heard, we just need to make sure that all those are read, and they're read in terms of who it is that provides that input. So again, this is in the interest of open meeting law. Okay, policy.
We haven't met since previous to our last full school committee meeting, but I know there was a second reading on that bullying policy.
So do you want to make that, you want to do that second reading now?
We probably should, right?
Okay. Be it resolved that the Central Berkshire Regional School Committee approves the second reading to the bullying prevention plan as recommended by the policy subcommittee.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second for approval of the second reading revision of the bullying prevention plan. This will cause it to be adopted. So I just want to make sure, is there any discussion on this?
I wanted to state that I had some questions about programs that were in place, but I spoke to Lori directly, and she answered all of my questions. And I feel comfortable that we're on the right track and there's more to happen. We'll continue to look at the programs and reevaluate.
I'm just thinking that most things at this stage should be as transparent as possible. And we should have an update at least every other school committee meeting, so that would be a monthly update on where we stand in the district, what we're working on. It seems to be, it's not just us, it's in the county, it's in the state, it's in the country. The degree of which we recognize it may have changed. The degree of which it spreads is equal to the degree at which media spreads now. So we all are confronted with it from a very young age all the way up to our ages. And it's something that schools and school districts are going to find themselves continually on the front line of. And just sort of have to echo some of Sean's thoughts. I mean, I just think it's paramount that we keep our heads in the game and be thinking about this stuff on a continual basis. We're not going to solve it. It's age old. It's always going to be there. I think we have to probably do more to support our teachers and our educators and everybody in our school environment on how to, and our parents, but for that matter, on how to build resiliency in our children. Because I think that's going to be the real key to defeating a victim mentality and it suppresses, the bullying aspects of things. So, we all need to learn with the changes that are happening in our environment. And I think we have a responsibility to ensure that in our school system that we stay as actively involved as possible in doing everything. So I would just request that. Thank you.
If that committee is adopted eventually, then you would have a forum for it every meeting. Okay, so all those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. Okay, school committee self-evaluation reminder. I don't have it for me the dates are, but this is the time of the year that we evaluate ourselves, and policy has worked on new forms. I think that we're going to make some more recent changes. There were some clauses in there that really were more superintendent evaluations than school committee evaluations, and we want to take those out or reword them so they're more school committee related. So I don't know where Mr. Peters is with that, or, sorry, Mr. Hagmeyer. Okay, personnel.
Personnel met Monday night and considered a number of topics. First was the list of non-represented employees. We have about 27 employees that are not represented by the union, and we have to create a guidelines that we give the superintendent for their increases. We saw what had been given, the guidelines that we had given last year and the results of that. And also we've had changes in that group of people because we've had several principals changed. We reviewed that, talked about that. We went over the evaluations of the superintendent, and once again, superintendent gave a summary of what she had learned on her one-on-one conversations with each of the school committee members. And we debated some topics related to that. The third one was all of us find the evaluation tool that we use annually to evaluate the superintendent very cumbersome at best. And I could elaborate on what other issues each of us has with it, but I won't. So there are some options, although they're very limited on what else we could do. And so there is an example of that, so we mentioned that. Right now, all of the members have a copy of what the town of Newton is doing, and that may prompt some discussion. We may come back to the committee at some point to modify our evaluation tool, but it's a difficult process with a lot of constraints. We dealt with a number of other topics, but for the most part, they were in executive session, and we will be producing those in the next few meetings that the full committee will see. We have no plans for another report, another meeting, although certainly there will be one in November, I expect. At this point, I see no reason to go into executive session. That's the end of my report.
Thank you. Any questions, Mr. Lockenthal? All right, we'll move on to technology. Mr. West.
We met tonight, discussed several topics, have a pretty full agenda. First we reviewed the technology subcommittee charter, and it was deemed to be sufficient, no changes needed. It's on the website as well too, if you want to read that. We discussed IT shared services with Adams Cheshire, and all of there was about 900 devices up there, mostly Apple. Mr. White's still evaluating the situation up there of needs and whatever. And you mentioned that he can't go into certain details because there's a non-disclosure agreement in place with them. So we couldn't really, discuss a lot of the technicalities, unfortunately. So there's some concerns with that, and we'll be looking into it. We'll see if we can open that up some more.
Well, I can clarify it, John. The plan was that once the two superintendents can discuss this, we'll bring back the information to the committee.
Right. We discussed the preliminary technology budget, which is going to be presented at the next meeting in October. And had a few updates. TEALS is a program that we asked for volunteers from the community, professionals to teach classes like computer programming, engineering, things like that. Right now we have no volunteers, so the TEALS program is kind of in limbo right now. The Girls for CyberStart, which is a cybersecurity initiative and competition, I really want us to get involved with. Unfortunately, Massachusetts does not support it yet, again, which is, we're like the Silicon Valley of the East, and yet, 34 states support it. They have a competition coming up in the wintertime, January in Denmark, so hopefully a decision by the state will be made by then. Wi-Fi in buses, right now, none of the bus companies bid on it, so it's pretty much, a dead topic, unfortunately. And we also discussed the AUPs. We just recently updated all three of them the past couple of years, and there's no updates needed now. They're looking good. The next meeting, I want to set a date. You said you can't do Mondays because Adams Cheshire has meetings?
Yeah, their school committee meetings are on Monday.
On Mondays, okay, so you can't do Mondays.
If we can avoid it, that would be great.
Okay, so our best bet probably is then right before the school committee meeting. So I'm going to set time in October of October 25th, 6 o'clock at Nesicus, right before the school committee. Sound good, everyone?
John, there was one other topic that we discussed. I think Mr. Sturgis had made some mention of our infrastructure was very sound and more or less up to date or new.
Right, yeah, almost everything in the infrastructure is pretty much new now. New servers, new Wi-Fi, a lot of new hardware, and we're looking really good right now as far as hardware acquisition. Now it's all going to be about maintenance. If I forget anything else.
Just that Power School, we're going to get an update at the next, on the next things to come with Power School. So I think that's pretty exciting. I think it's been a good tool for us, and we'll see how it evolves.
Yes, very good tool.
Okay, are there any questions for Mr. Lutz? Move on to the Wacona Building Project.
So I can start, and then I would actually ask if Mrs. DiTomaso wants to jump in at all, because she has been doing a lot of work on the school building committee. So each of the open houses, with the exception of Wacona's, which is next week, have taken place, and there's been a presence from the school building committee at each of them, and a presence that has not been just the typical myself or Mr. Rob or Mr. Amercost speaking to the project, but Tom Callahan, Jason Dion, Ms. DiTomaso have been out at several of them. There's others as well who have been participating in them, and just getting the information out there and really sharing why we went with the option we did, but I'll let her speak to the conversation. Just some logistical things. We've submitted all of the required information. It was all due to the MSBA on the 12th, which was yesterday, was when it was due to the MSBA, and already tonight I see an email from the MSBA with some of their initial questions and comments. So that process is moving forward. The design team will be back on site October 11th, and I'll ask the chair and the vice chair at our agenda setting meeting tomorrow if they'd like to have them at school committee, because on that date they'll be in the district all day. They're going to be meeting with groups again, so I have a list here from the principal from DRA of all of the different subgroups of staff he wants to meet with to be getting even more specific information. So we're getting much more into the details at this point, and then they'll be having a working group that evening as well as a full school building committee meeting. The next big dates that we're waiting on, which will happen between now and October 11th, is there will be dates given to us from the MSBA for most likely myself, Mr. Rob, and Sean Therian, who's been a huge contributor to this, to the work behind the educational plan. Will go to Boston to the MSBA to answer questions they have about the document. The October 31st date is when they vote to approve it. So they'll have us come out to speak to some of the details of it and ask some questions about the substance, and then we'll go back on the 31st of October for them to actually vote to approve it, and then we are locked in with the design plan that we've decided on. So that's really the timeline right now. Between now and October 11th, we're waiting for a date to go down and answer questions. We've been asked some questions in writing that we're going to respond to, and then October 11th they'll be on site again, and October 31st we should have an approved design plan. Do you want to add anything about the meetings? Because I know you've been at several.
So the people who were presenting at the meetings, we all made ourselves available to be at a table at the front of the open houses. Mr. Peters, Melinda Walton, Tom Callahan, Mike Case, Bill Mulholland, myself, Jason Gian, I think that's it. So I went to Beckett and Nessicus. I know there was an open house at Craneville. We didn't think we were going to have enough people at Beckett, which is, I was originally going to be in Craneville, but I went to Beckett instead. My involvement at Beckett, we handed out flyers, we handed out the two-page PowerPoint that Lori had provided to us, which I found very helpful when talking with parents, because the one-page newsletter, especially for people my age and older, would like bigger print, more visual, and a lot of people found it very helpful because the newsletter had the schematic of the school and some verbiage, but what I did is I put it kind of like this, so the slides were below it, so I could hand it to parents, talking about the reasoning behind the new build versus renovation. Overall, in all of the open houses that I attended, the overall reception was very positive, especially for those parents who have children, especially at Nessicus. I was talking to a lot of the students who were coming into Nessicus and asking when the graduation date was, and many of the children that I spoke to said, oh, I'm graduating in 2024. Oh, I'm going to be in the new school, potentially. Because we did explain potentially it would be occupied in September 2021. A lot of the parents were very supportive of the school, They really liked the fact that the education plan was very much considered in the design of the school. There were a couple of parents at 2 of the open houses who expressed concern about air conditioning. And I assured them that that would be considered in the design. And we're very concerned about the kids being on an upper floor in 98-degree temperatures. Some of the educators also said, no, I heard you talking about air conditioning, that would be a good thing. So overall, it was a very positive experience. People were very open to us being there, very thankful for us being there. At Nessicus, I do have to say that at Craneville and at Nessicus, Jason DeYoung had this wonderful whiteboard with a big picture of the school. I didn't have that at Beckett, so I was a little disappointed at that. But he was the star performer, and he was standing there showing people the schematic, talking about all the technical things that I necessarily wouldn't have the answers to, like the square footage. Someone actually asked me what the square footage of the existing Lakota was. I had to run over to Jason and say, can you help me? I don't really know. I thought it was about 112,000 square feet. It's actually 113, so I was a little bit off. But overall, it was a very positive experience, and I was very happy to participate.
Okay. There is another open house that will come up, it'll be on the 20th of this month. So if anyone wants to attend that, to see these wonderful presentations, you're more than welcome. Are there any questions on the Lakota building project? Okay, we'll move on to superintendent's reports and recommendations.
Sure. So I will start. I wanted to introduce you to our new administrative team here at Craneville. Many of you probably recognize both of them, perhaps, because we have a couple parents from Craneville on the committee. But certainly you should recognize Mrs. Pecor, who has been our vice principal here at Craneville for the previous 2 years, and now has become our principal, which we're super excited about. And then Nathan Liu, who joins us from Pittsfield, and we were very fortunate to have him join our team. So do you guys want to just introduce yourselves quick? Is that okay? They're okay with this. They're very comfortable with it. He's very theatrical, so she...
No, in all seriousness, I feel very honored to be able to have stepped into the role of principal. Having been the assistant principal for 2 years, I feel like I've gotten to know the staff and the students very well, and I feel honored. They're very dedicated and passionate about students. And we're very happy to have Nathan. I feel like our goals are very aligned of creating a safe and really compassionate learning environment for all our students. We were talking this morning about what we were going to say tonight, and we talked about our own elementary school experiences and how the both of us really remember distinct examples of teachers from when we were, in first grade or second grade that really made a difference. So if you want to...
Yeah, so I was born and raised in Cummington, so part of the district for a long time. And my class was the last class to attend the 2-room schoolhouse in Windsor. So when I was in first grade and had Mrs. Barbara Robb, we closed the school. We were the last class there. Just thinking about the passion that was instilled in me for education and learning, I can remember a situation in every grade from K to 5 where my eyes were open to a different learning environment. So I'm thinking like in first grade, Mrs. Robb brought in all this like junk, like old tape players and old, cassette players and just things around her house. We had to recreate them and make like our own robot. Things like that stick with me 30 years later. Just show me how much passion she had for me, and then it really was carried over to my professional career as well. So I've been here 3 weeks. I've met a lot of people. And just have been really impressed with the staff here at Craneville. Just walking to their classrooms every day and seeing just their own passion for learning and just how that carries over to the students as well, who are excited to be in the school and to learning. Part of my role in Pittsfield, I was in special education for the last 8 years, working as a unit leader, so working with in the classroom, but also coaching teachers and paraprofessionals how to become better teachers. So that's part of my role. And what I was really focused on was behavior and social emotional learning. So I know in this district and even at Craneville, we're looking to take the next step in phase 2 for PBIS, and that's something I've been really trained in and can help move Craneville along. Then Andy and I were talking this week about my goals for the year, and one of them is just looking at behavior, looking at data, and how we can really look at and support our students who are the most needy and with individualized plans and helping the teachers as well. So I'm excited to be here. It's great to be back in Central Berkshire. You know, I graduated from Wacona. It's just nice to come back and hear the plans for a new school.
And I feel like we've been in a really good rhythm. I feel already only 3 weeks in, and you've mentioned some of our plans for the year. You know, PBIS, really taking a look at social emotional learning. I think one of the things that we both believe in is the both of us getting into classrooms as much as possible, speaking to teachers face to face. We both are very big on reaching out to families, asking questions, making sure that everybody's on the same page. And I think it's the same with students, making sure that everybody is in the same conversation and that there's clear action steps to address, whether it's a behavior, whether it's an academic issue, whether it's an issue that's related to social emotional learning. Oftentimes things collide, as we know. So if everybody's contributing to the conversation, we can work together with our families, with our teachers, with our support staff to make sure that we're making the right plans so that all of our students can grow academically, because I know that we all believe that's why we're here. Like, that's what students deserve. So we're just really excited we've hit the ground running, I feel. So that's where we're at.
Thank you, and welcome.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thank you.
welcome.
So it's been a very positive start, and it was a very positive process. So I had shared with Craneville teachers when the decision to have Debbie White go to Nesicus was announced that I would be holding a meeting at the end of the week to discuss next steps for Craneville. And I was flooded with positive accolades for Mrs. Pecor and what a strong leader she was and how much they were hopeful that she would be their principal. So it's been an excellent start here. We are very fortunate to have them, like Annie said, be able to hit the ground running the way they have. I don't think there's really been an impact to Craneville. They certainly wish Mrs. White well, and they certainly miss her, but it's really been very smooth. There hasn't been that kind of, sometimes there's a little bit of a setback when you have to make a change in leadership. Both Annie and Debbie worked so closely together that it's been very seamless. So really positive. I'm going to do the presentation.
Can I ask
Oh, yeah.
just
Okay, you
one
want
comment?
to? Yes.
One of the things that we have parents come to us every year and ask us about is how do we support our kids that are ready to excel and go above and beyond where the rest of the class is. So, you know, at some point, as you get comfortable and you're presenting more, it's good to hear both ends of the spectrum, and I'd like to have some attention on that end of the spectrum as well. So, thank you very much.
Yeah, that's great.
All right, so I'm going to skip that if that's okay, just to kind of get through some of this. That's more things you have in front of you. Again, I did it seems like months ago at this point, but opening day, I did want to share with you, I think it was a success. The data says that it was a success, both anecdotal and from the staff who took the time to complete the survey and share their feedback around opening day. I did share with you we had a unique guest speaker kick off opening day in the form of Mr. Bradshaw. So several years now I've tried to gain the attention of the staff, and getting staff to settle down and listen on opening day is far more challenging than any student group. So Mr. Bradshaw was able to do that much more successfully. Mike's nodding that I... No, Mr. Bradshaw, let's just be honest here. You admit your weaknesses and then you seek out support to help you. So Mr. Bradshaw did an awesome job, and he actually, people thought it was very prepared, but it was kind of last minute, and he tied it into UDL and that person who was kind of that charismatic adult for him and really believed in him and inspired him to go into education. So quite some time later, we are fortunate that person took that initiative and interest in him, because he certainly benefited our district for a long time. If you are trying to wrap your head around UDL, Charlie's done a really good job of really processing it and finding ways to make it very basic and very understandable, and to contrast it with the way that instruction used to be. So because he really has a broad spectrum of what education and instructional practices have looked like over time. And so a couple examples, he's continuously giving me examples to share with the staff that just strike him. And he's like, oh, that's why UDL is so important. And it ranges. So I shared a couple of the examples. One is something he created for parents, and I shared it in the packet. And it's a visual picture of a garden and a description about why UDL supports all students to follow their passions and be successful. And then the second, if you're a music fan and you watch Another Brick in the Wall on YouTube by Pink Floyd, it really explains what UDL does, and that's very much not UDL. So you're kind of saying, what is this UDL thing? Charlie's got a few quick ways of saying this is what it's not, and this is why we want to do UDL. So check that out. If you are interested, the keynote presentation this year, we did have Livbit, who's a known keynote and speaker at this point, talk to the staff, and definitely we always try and do something different, kind of to challenge our thinking and build some excitement around opening day, and this was certainly different, in a different way of kind of looking at opening day and hearing from a student about what it's like to be sitting in the classrooms that the staff are teaching in. So the feedback was good. We did do a choice-based opening day, which was a first for us. So I kept kind of telling staff it was probably like a C+, B- UDL activity, because in an ideal world, what I would have done is surveyed the staff and gotten their interest and then developed the sessions. That was just not logistically possible. That's what we're going to do in the spring. But I think we did pretty well with anticipating their needs based on conversational data, observational data, and then district priorities. If you look at the feedback, and this has grown, it's live, so I haven't shut it off yet, but close to 90% felt that the PD was relevant. Over 90% felt it aligned to the vision, and over 90% thought that the presenters were knowledgeable. So a successful day and something we want to do more often. I did share with you, I will not get into the details of it for the individual student involved, but it's been more than one time that we've been concerned about kindergartners successfully navigating the bus procedures. I am proposing for next year, it's just a logistical change. I am concerned, we kind of say it's always a kindergartner, but as somebody who's going to have a kindergartner soon, that is a scary thing to be aware of. Anybody who watches the news on opening day or follows Twitter, when there's a bus issue, and I spoke to Barbara a little bit about this, who's been in the seat of a principal, it's always a kindergartner. So anything that we can do to make sure it's not anybody, never mind a kindergartner, not anybody, it's a concern. So we right now, when I got here, we started doing an orientation on opening day, the day before opening day, for our kindergartners, our 6th and our 9th, but our 6th and our 9th go through the entire procedure. They get on the bus, they eat in the cafeteria, they go home on the bus, they access their lockers, all of that. Our kindergartners, we're not doing it that way. It's a drop-in session with their parents. So it's really missing this huge opportunity to navigate the transportation, both for the kindergartner, but also for the bus driver and the people who help to assist them in getting to the buses, to put eyes on them and say, okay, here's my kindergartners. I visually have identified all of them. So for next year, what I'd like to do is, I've talked to the elementary principals, they're all in favor, because they've all had concerns about this in their careers, that we switch it so that kindergartners access the same way that 6 and 9 do. Because of the parent component at that age level, we'll still do a drop-in session in late August, but we will have a full day orientation. I think it'll make a difference. It's just one more thing that we can do to be hyper-vigilant around this, because it's scary, and you think about it. The other piece of it is, I don't know if you've ever watched 5-year-olds get in 2 vehicles, but sometimes they're actually picked up, they're usually assisted, they're usually strapped into a booster seat, and then all of a sudden you're actually getting onto a big yellow bus and finding your seat. Drastic difference in what they've experienced to date at home. So we want to take that step, so I'll remind you of that, but I do want to change the way we run that orientation.
Do we still give them a ride during orientation in the spring? When my kids were small, they came in during the spring, they met the teachers and they took a ride. It gives them that.
Yeah.
Have we done that?
I know last year they did.
At Craneville?
Yes.
And they just went for a ride just so they can say, hey, I rode a bus. And I'm a big kid now, and it's a big deal for them to do.
Yeah. So I think we are doing that. Are we doing that at Beckett though as well? Yes, Beckett, Kittredge, and Craneville. But I don't know that the carryover's there come August. So Ellen probably can speak to it better than I can.
It's a fun bus ride. You come in with your kid for the spring orientation, and these kids are not necessarily in their class they meet all 3 kindergarten teachers, but it's not necessarily their teacher. They kind of get on a bus, go for a quick ride, and then they come back and they're like, "Yeah, I rode on a bus," and it's not the real deal.
So we'll stick with that.
They just think they did something big kid.
There was issues with funding.
So we won't stop doing that because that "Yay, I rode on a bus" is getting them excited about kindergarten. But it's not necessarily getting them to know, here's my bus driver, and this is going to be busy, and I need to look, and I need to pay attention, and so we'll do both.
Yes.
It's agreeable as a kindergarten parent. I'm like, so we'll do both. Makes sense. Opening day numbers. So we're 27 students less than last year, I believe, if I did the math correct. Makes sense? Differences. Again, I remember Rob doing this and just emphasizing this is a moving target. October 1 is our real reporting for the state. These numbers will change. Not that they could, they will change. And Greg always kind of hesitates when I ask him for them because they will change. But that was opening day. Interestingly, the absence is the exact same. So, and then the school choice numbers. We do have several new school choice students. It kind of reflects for you where our school choice numbers are sitting. As of right now, we will have changes in accurate numbers for you sometime around December. The biggest influx was obviously at Wacona with 37 new students. No, I'm like, that does not make any sense. That would not, Rick would have been having a Chromebook catastrophe. 37 overall, 13, the biggest increase is at Wacona with 37 new students. Nicole went over the bullying procedures, but I did just highlight, just so you're aware, the main updates that were included in that. The inclusive practices, I think you probably already have read through it. I don't want to go through it in too much detail, but I do want to mention a couple of things. The parent university. So one thing we've been talking about doing, I don't know if people have heard of these, Boston Public does a huge one, which is quite extensive, but a lot of districts are doing them. Basically an opportunity for parents to learn about things happening in the schools, but to be universally designed, what we did is we asked parents, well, when would you want this to happen? First we asked, are you interested? And the vast majority of parents, like well over 90%, were like, yes, I want to go to this. Would you like childcare to access it? Well over 50%, yes, childcare would be beneficial. When logistically do you want to do this? Vast majority of people were weekday evenings. And then we asked them to weigh in on what topics. Really popular topics were supporting Chromebooks at home, technology use in the home, safety and security. So we're actually going to ask Chief Coe and Trooper Kanata to do a session. But what we've done is we have given that data to the UDL steering committee, which Leslie chairs. So under inclusive practices, which is our district priority, is UDL, is the prong that is how you actually provide instruction. It's also about parent engagement and parent support. There's a steering committee that Leslie facilitates. They're going to look at that data and start to design the parent university. So just wanted to share that with you in case you're interested, or as parents or committee members. One more way to really understand what UDL looks like as an instructional method, the Wacona, actually more than just Wacona is the one that I have an example from, but several different schools and content areas universally design different summer activities. I have an example I'm sharing from Wacona. They universally designed their summer reading program, and Megan Donovan, who is a teacher, an English teacher at Wacona, created a universally designed PowerPoint to explain to the students what the projects were, the intent behind them, how they were going to go over them, and you can look at that and get some good understanding. Basically, when we talk about UDL, we say it's a firm goal that's met through flexible means. So the firm goal, students engage with literature. The flexible ways they can do that, they could choose their book, and they could choose the way they demonstrated their knowledge. Some of the things that were really popular from the gallery walk I went to, blogs, iMovies, and then some of the basic ones, like that were kind of more prevalent in the 90s. Kids want to be creative and actually, paintings, that kind of thing. So take a look at that. The second prong under inclusive practices is PBIS, and I outlined where each school is at with that and what we would be doing to continue to move them forward. The last one that I wanted to just highlight is hopefully going to be funded pretty extensively by a grant that Annie actually and I have applied for. So the third prong under inclusive practices is social emotional learning. There hasn't been a lot of tangible resources from the state at this point on that to really focus and guide that work in a systematic, evidence-based way. There was a grant, a competitive grant that was posted in the past month that Annie and I are applying for, and the grant is 2 phases. First year of the grant is to basically assess all of your practices that fall under social emotional learning. Annie and I were actually surprised at how comprehensive it is. It talks about everything from your nutrition practices to how you file 51As as a mandated reporter around abuse and neglect, to your bullying prevention and intervention plan, anything you could really think about a student's overall well-being, your basic needs to be successful in a classroom need to be met first. If we get the grant, which we think that we are a very strong candidate to do so, a steering committee will be formed. Now, you might say, well, what if you don't get the grant? We do have a backup plan. We'll have to be a little more creative because we won't have access to one of the main components, but we can still do the work. If we get the grant, the state has a tool that we would administer to survey every single building to get information about the social emotional learning climate in every single building. And then it would all be tabulated for us, and we would work with a consultant to really dissect it and create an implementation plan in year 2. So year 1, you're really collecting the data, you're starting to make plans, you're working with the steering committee, and in year 2, you use the funds to actually implement what you've recommended. There's several different groups that need to be represented on the steering committee. What I like about it is you see a lot of the same faces all the time because we kind of go to the same people all the time because there's a lot of work to be done. You've got a lot of people doing a lot of the work, a lot of the same people doing the work. This really taps into different groups. So we'd like to have a representative from the Gay Straight Alliance. We'd like to have a representative from the Best Buddies program. We'd like to have a representative from the nurses. So it kind of gets into different groups, and I have asked for a school committee member, and Barbara has agreed to participate. So excited about that. And what Pete had asked for before is a monthly update. That would be very feasible because this committee would be meeting regularly and actually having some really solid evidence to be sharing on a regular basis. So hopefully on the 11th, I'll know if we got the grant or not. And then if we do, I'll be telling you exactly how we'll be rolling out our year. And if we don't, I'll be telling you what our plans are to still do the core pieces of the work. That makes sense? Annie and I were kind of talking about how can we do this, and we're like, how do you really focus yourself in social emotional learning and collect evidence? And sure enough, like same timing, I got an email about the grant. So good news. My goals are in the packet. They're for you to review, and I would anticipate a lot of you haven't had a lot of time to because we just finished on Monday night at personnel. So I certainly will give you that time to digest them because they're not being approved till next week, till the next meeting. If anyone has questions or input though, please reach out to me. Does that work? You can give me a call if you kind of are reading them. A couple people already have, and I've tried to answer their questions. They are focused, again, inclusive practices. I tried to make it more robust though, so it's really focusing on those other 2 areas of PBIS and SEL as much as UDL. Because we're very far along in UDL, not so much in PBIS, and in the beginning stages in SEL. And then student achievement is still kind of looking at data that's pretty, it's still coming out and is embargoed, but I tried to use that. The MSBA project, that's a huge part of our world. And then take a close look at the 4th goal, because I did try to use your feedback directly in that goal, if you will. So that's it. The only other thing really quick is if you are saying, what is PBIS? I hear about it, people talk about it, but what is it? We are going to do a presentation on that at the October meeting when the school improvement plans are presented, because you'll hear it in the school improvement plans. The elementary, middle, and high school principals have really tried to focus their school improvement plans in 3 areas: UDL, PBIS, and SEL. That's really what we're doing. And everything falls under one of those, really does. We couldn't think of anything that didn't, even fire drills. Right? We even got fire drills. So I'll go through this, and I don't want to put anyone on the spot. And it's certainly, I'm the author, and Rick, is your email here?
Yeah.
Can I just pull up the one I just sent you, because I want to make sure you have the most recent one.
I think that's it.
I think it is?
Yeah.
If it isn't, you have it right in front of you as well. It would be a matter of like a typo that Joe or Rick found.
I apologize.
So I've gotten I just want to go over this. This was a topic we put on the agenda for tonight when we had forecasted out a little bit. And I think it's timely. because I've gotten several questions from committee members, like, how's it going? Some of you, like Mr. Gazillo, have experienced it directly because you have a student at the high school who's received a Chromebook. But really, how's it going? Because we have invested a lot in technology. As Joe Sturgis said tonight in the technology subcommittee, this pie-in-the-sky wish list doesn't really exist anymore because the vast majority of it's here. It's been met. We've got a lot in classrooms, which is awesome. But how's it going? So just to make sure everyone does remember, our staffing structure has changed. As Mr. Les said, we are going to give an update on how this relationship with Adams Cheshire is going, and we will certainly speak to the specifics once I have the opportunity to sit down with John Bosberg, who's the superintendent in Adams Cheshire, per the agreement that happens in October. So again, our director of technology, this just kind of shows you, if you kind of want to know what the breakdown is, they're a very organized department, how they divide out the work. We have hired a full-time technician. She started mid-August, has been very successful, been able to kind of jump right in and join the team, which has been great. I did mention that while the hardware, the software, and really more of the infrastructure is under these individuals, they are very knowledgeable when it comes to the Google platform and are able to work in that world as well, which is a benefit to us. It's not the norm everywhere, but it's absolutely a benefit here. But digital integration is supported in the district, how it's used extensively by our Director of Teaching and Learning. We're very fortunate. Our instructional coach, Patty Roby, was probably using technology as much, if not more than anybody in a classroom setting, so is really bringing that with her as she coaches. Our principals are very skilled in this. We actually have a consulting relationship from the Collaborative for Educational Services out of Northampton. That relationship has existed for a while. It was specific to Beckett, Washington at one time, and then it was more broad. This year we're targeting most of their resources at Wacona in order to get more teachers with expertise who can provide leadership in real time in the building. So there's a group of 7 teachers working with the consultants from CES at Wacona. Again, really all we can say about this, it's in the very early stages. Mr. White has reported it's going well, but we really have not had that dialogue with Adams Cheshire at this time, and just kind of gives you an overview of what his responsibilities are there. When we were doing this, I said to Rick and Joe Sturgis being our assistant technology director, what right now is kind of a hard thing to ask them because they're so still unpacking things for this year. But what are you thinking is going to likely be in the budget in some capacity come January? This was a suggestion brought forward by Mr. Sturgis. I think it's an excellent one, is really to have a paid summer support position. That's something we do in custodial staff. We often have to do a lot of painting in the summer. There's more work than there traditionally would be. So we bring people in for the short term. When you bring in a lot of the technology that has to be repaired, inventoried, that could be supported in the summer. Would be something I certainly would consider bringing forward. I think it would be an asset to the department. Our plan for the devices, we have 150 graduating seniors. They're going to be giving their devices back. They're only going to be a year old. These are new Chromebooks. They're coming back to the district. They're going to be giving to our rising 5th graders as they enter the 6th grade. As you can see, 150 minus 105. In an ideal world, you'd end with 45 of them. We'd like to think 45 will live a successful life, but there's a likelihood it could be less than that, but we will have a balance of Chromebooks. Those Chromebooks will be cycled into replacements because, as I believe Mr. Les said, our focus right now is making sure we keep the devices quality. We're replacing things. We're planning for when they have their lifespan has been reached. That was just some data from Mr. Sturgis that Google's update policy is 4 years for a Chromebook. We know that could be less, but that's kind of the expectation. Again, just replacing things at this point. The only thing that would be in addition is we would like to consider adding cases for the grade 6 through 8 Chromebooks. They don't leave the building, but they do travel the hallways. So that would certainly be a benefit. Again, the Chromebook rollout, I think some of you already are familiar with this, but just to give you a reminder, pre-K through 2, they have access to carts. There's iPad carts, there's Chromebook carts, and there are computer labs. There's a high level of access, so there's certainly plenty for the staff to use for those grade levels. 3 through 5, every student has a Chromebook, but the Chromebook doesn't leave the classroom. 6 through 8, every student has a Chromebook, and it doesn't leave the building. And then 9 through 12, every student has a Chromebook issued to them for the year. All students, and Aaron actually thought, Mr. Rob actually thought it could be literally all, have been given their Chromebooks. They were down to single digits as of this afternoon of Chromebooks that had to be given out. Of the students who were given the option of bringing their own device, only 12 chose to do so. They gave that option to 11th and 12th graders, knowing they have to start making those kinds of decisions, getting ready for college. What kind of a device do you want to use? And if they had a laptop they wanted to bring, they could. The devices in 10 through 12 are new. The 9th graders brought their devices with them from the middle school. If you want more information, there's a ton on the website. Rick, Joe, Aaron have all been adding a lot. Steve Messina, we were able to borrow some of what Greylock has, because they're a few years ahead of us in this initiative. The integration, I think, is what people are most interested in. I was talking with a couple staff members who are not at the elementary level but have spent some time there. K-5 has extensive use in classrooms in really, really creative ways with the Chromebooks. Really, really quite impressive to see what I'm often taken back that students at that age level can do. And the creative use, the use at 6-8 has increased substantially. You have to remember as well, for a long time, K-5 had the most access to technology. So they're using it extensively, they've had a lot of access, they've had a lot of training. We have a couple of Google certified teachers at that level, so a lot of use. 6 through 8, lots and lots of use. Where we're trying to support and give PD is to move beyond the commonly used Google apps to give some different kinds of options, but lots of use in the classrooms at this point. 9 through 12, by and large, the beginning stages. Again, you say that and then you might walk by a classroom and say, there's extensive use. But our baseline of where teachers are self-reporting is that they're saying we kind of feel we're in the beginning stages, we have some with more expertise, we're all using it for Google Docs, for Google Slides, those kinds of things. But the more extensive way of changing instruction with it, we're hoping that will come from this embedded coaching. So that's what I was talking about earlier. At Wacona, we have a contract for embedded coaching for the collaborative from Educational Services, and they're actually giving extensive training to 7 teachers throughout the year. And then part of the commitment from the teachers is they'll in turn be resources for their colleagues, and Mr. Rubb has a pretty extensive schedule for that. 3 through 10, we do state assessments on the technology as well as Study Island. So this is just some data. The Google platform, again, extensively used. And I hope that this is, no, this Joe made a last minute edit before it went to you. Joe caught a typo. So Google Classroom, again, we have 187 active classes as of today, last year 140. A lot of those were at the middle school, extensive use of Google Classroom. We have 1,100 active users, last year we had 1,000. So lots of use. Websites, now these numbers are likely higher, as Joe always cautions me, because these are linked to our website. We keep finding kind of websites out there, not to call them rogue websites, but websites that have not yet been linked to ours and teachers are maintaining. We're trying to get them all linked to ours. So as you see, extensive use of websites. And then again, the PD going on. I did mention at the top, Girls Who Code program we're going to roll out this year. It's a national program, and I, of course, left the data, but it's pretty striking, so I just really want to quickly mention it. We'll have a Girls Who Code program at 3 through 5, 6 through 8, 9 through 12, all funded through grants and corporate sponsors. Has some really strong data around showing that alumni of the Girls Who Code programs are choosing majors in computer science at 15 times the national average. And that's obviously quite impressive, especially given that from 1995, 37% of computer scientists were women, and it's now at 24%, predicted to be at 20% within the near future. So it's on a downward slide, and the jobs are on an upward trajectory. So getting more girls excited and interested. The other interesting data is the loss happens. 66% of girls aged 6 through 12 say, I'd be interested in that, I might want to do a job with that. By the time they're college freshmen, only 4%. So really neat program. They provide all of the curriculum. They provide all of the actual instruction. You provide the space, the devices, and a facilitator. And it also has some kind of, team building, relationship building, kind of empowerment components to it as well. So we're excited about that. And we're actually logistically, and I'll share an update, thinking we're going to be able to do it as a 3 through 5 program that will share all elementaries. So again, check this out if you can. It has all the links, but it's just different ways technology's in the schools. Every school has a green screen. They're used in some awesome ways, like really creative, cool stuff going on with the green screen. Every school at the, so the elementary shares a 3D printer, but the secondary have a combination of 6 3D printers as well as a fab maker. But that's just kind of a list of all the different things that are going on. Lots of use for parent communication. I bet people in this room are using it for Blooms, Class Dojo, Remind are big ones. But if you want to check out the links, you can just literally hear how these different things work. But if you do nothing else, Mary Kay McCluskey shared this. PTO this year at Beckett Washington, this is such an awesome thing, decided to fund the school supplies. So there was no last minute run to Target for parents or anxiety on the part of a child of, do I have the right stuff? They funded all school supplies. Teachers love it because they can say, take out your red notebook, and they know you have a red notebook versus a Justin Bieber notebook or whatever the cool notebook is. Right? I don't know, that's dating myself, something way cooler than Justin Bieber. But they actually know.
The red one, okay?
They know what they have. So the kids in 5th grade said they wanted to make a video thanking them, and check it out because you'll see it's not a first time thing. They know what they're doing. They almost are like, I love the way these red note, they are talking very naturally as if they're almost doing like an advertisement. And it's because they do that kind of stuff all the time. So check that out. But we're really very, very, very fortunate with what we have for technology in classrooms. We are trying to keep up with the demand for professional development because teachers are excited about this. They want to use it to enhance skill set knowledge and support that the best that we can. So that's kind of where we're at. Those were the most, I don't know if Mr. Hope is in the room, but opening day, if he was, he's like crammed in there. The Google sessions.
Oh, great, they were great.
And they were packed,
They
right?
were.
That was actually, we had one more question, I didn't want to, logistically, did you like the rooms for the PD sessions? A lot of people said we needed more room for the Google. People were spilling out the doors.
Yeah, the Google sessions were in the home ec room.
Yes.
And yeah, we need to plug in too. Everybody needs to plug in. It was very informative. Let's say Ms. Judware Whitehouse was our main presenter. She was phenomenal, and she walked a lot of us through, my generation anyway, we're digital natives, so we're kind of like, what do we do here? How do we make it easier, more conducive to use in our classroom? They were both very informative. A lot of applicable things that we wish we had known last year and the year before that hit the ground running this year with. So I got a lot out of it. I know we all did, and we could have had a room twice that size.
Yeah, it was huge. And that, what Mr. Hope just said is a concern that we got to be careful with. Like with Nessicas, they got way more technology than they got professional development. It was kind of not a balance, whereas Wacona's getting a balance, so it's a little bit more, it's still the technology's sitting there, so you can only keep up so much. But we're always trying to be really purposeful around that, because if you have the devices, you need the support to use them, and we're trying to do better by that, if you will. I have one more to say, but does anybody have any questions about that?
A couple of comments. The Girls for Cyber Start will go very well with the Girls Who Code the program, so I'll stay on top of that and see whenever Massachusetts comes on board.
Yeah.
And present that to you. And a thought came to my head just now when you were making this presentation of the downside of all this, right? I've been pushing this for years, supporting this for years. We're finally there. We got one-on-one, equipment for all the kids. I've been reading articles, though, in the past few years about teachers who use the equipment as a way of, dumping off the work onto the kids while the teachers, don't do as much in class as they should. Now we need to watch that. Now we have the technology, school district. We need to make sure that the technology is used right. It's just a tool. It's not an end-all solution. So we keep an eye on that as well.
Lori, I just wanted to say that presentation was exciting. And I'm so glad to see you enthusiastic and see it being rolled out the way it is, because I think we're right on. I really do. Thank you.
Thanks.
Alan?
So, the presentation was great. I'm so glad that all this technology is being used in the classrooms and kids are learning and growing with technology. Victoria was very excited to have her Chromebook in class. But an idea for parents, universities, which we were talking about, is with these kids getting all this access to all this technology, their own school email addresses, all these websites that they're being pointed to help them, grow their skills, is to remind parents of like the social media, more of the bad parts about social media. And I know that we have all these websites out there that we think that we can protect them from, but then there are like 6 more that come on where, kids can go on and put without parents' knowledge and hide their accounts. And I think it might be a good idea to have somebody who may know the ins and outs of social media, how to protect your kids, these are all of the latest apps, the latest social media sites. These are what kids are doing on them. And these are the, what parents can do to keep access to them so they know they can keep track of their kids. Help them, navigate responsibility of social media, protect against cyberbullying, all that kind of stuff.
The DA's office has supported us on that in the past, and they've got a really excellent, at least they had an excellent presentation on that, all the ins and outs. I'm not sure if we could engage a second user. He was the one that made the presentations, and he does an excellent job.
I thought at one point we had recorded that. Do we have that, Rick? Can we make it available on the website so any parent could watch that at any time?
Well, it was part of a school committee meeting. Well,
It was.
there was one that was part of a school committee meeting. That's already up on the website. And there was a second one, I believe, at Nessicus.
Right.
I'll look for that one. I'm not sure where that went.
He did do an excellent job.
Can I say 2 things? That's an excellent idea. I agree completely with you. One thing to keep in mind as a school committee, when we sent these home with kids, we also put a content filter on it. So there is a content filter. It is a base level of protection, and we certainly should absolutely go beyond that, especially for social media. But it is there, just so you know, okay? And
I see kids now more and more asking for phones and their own devices, and
oh yeah,
parents give the devices out, and they have no idea what their kids are really doing on them.
that's true.
So just a remark, it was a year or 2 ago that we did that, probably 2 years ago, maybe more. It'd be good to check in with them to see if there's been an update to that presentation. If we want to have Attorney Kinzer come in again at some point in time, we can do that. Because he enjoyed coming in and presenting to the committee that evening.
Things change very quickly.
They do, that's my point.
I'm technically part of, a digital native, but I don't do Instagram, I don't do Snapchat, I'm still a Facebook user. I have no clue of all the other social media sites out there, the powers of it.
He had nothing good to say about Snapchat, I will say.
No.
So the next thing I have that falls under my report is the recommendation regarding the Director of Student Services. So I did share with you our Director of Student Services has resigned effective October 1. She has accepted actually a superintendency in Connecticut. So we are certainly supportive of her, but obviously our next thought is what is our plan? We are very, very fortunate that Stephanie Case, who is the retired director from Pittsfield, a phenomenal director who also knows us well because she's done an interim for us before and has just allowed things to work like clockwork when we've had disruption in permanent directors. So my recommendation at this time is to appoint Stephanie as the Director of Student Services as the interim. She has shared with me she will stay with us through December, through the break, and then she will be off to Hawaii. So she has said that's kind of her timeline. I do believe I will be able to bring a recommendation to you about a permanent director between now and then, but I am very, very confident in Mrs. Case. We are lucky that she has done this in the past. We're also lucky that while we have had 2 directors resign for some unique reasons, they've done really good work. So it's not a matter of a situation that's in crisis, but you do need someone in that seat at all times. So I would recommend that, and they will do a little bit of transition in the next couple weeks, but Stephanie is very familiar with us.
Would a member please make a motion?
Whereas Maria Garrick will resign as Student Services Director effective September 30th, 2018. Be it resolved that the CBRSD School Committee appoint Ms. Stephanie Case, the Interim Student Services Director, in accordance with MGL Chapter 71B, Section 3AB, effective October 1st, 2018, and shall continue in that assignment until the new Student Services Director is appointed by the CBRSD School Committee and begins service.
Second. Okay, we have a motion and a second for appointment of Interim Student Services Director. Is there any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? The motion carries. And that's it for regular business this evening. The superintendent has noted one personnel change, and I'm not familiar with any old business. And is there any new business that I would like to see on the agenda? Is there any emergency business for tonight or something for the agenda for next time? Okay, then we'll close the remarks of the committee. Ms. Roper.
Yeah, I just wanted to had a couple of conversations about how hot it's been, and it has been. The first 2 weeks of school were very, very hot. How did we ever make out with the filters for the faucets here at Craneville? We were going to look into the faucets, getting filters possibly to make the drinking water a little better.
In the filters in the classroom? Let me follow up with Jason DeYoung on that.
Okay.
Okay? And I'll send something out to you.
That's specifically in this building, Mr. Roper? That's specifically in this building?
Yeah, because the conversation was about the other schools getting the water fountain things, so to fill up their water bottles, and we weren't getting them here at Craneville, but it was suggested by a committee member that maybe because we all have faucets, they put them underneath. And we have a plumber on duty, so.
Okay.
Well, can I add to that? I can clarify that. I think I had said that the additions we made in the other schools were filtered water. They are not. So this is not a lone school without filtered water. So I just wanted to make that clear. I was
They have the
mistaken
ability
with
to
that.
get their water bottles filled and stuff. That was.
From a machine that is adapted to their water bubbler or faucet. Here, the classrooms each have one.
So this is a good example of what that committee might study, the environment of the school. Anyone else? Yeah, I've got just 2 things. Did everyone get a copy of this in the school committee? Okay, the reason I'm asking, if you didn't, let Greg know.
I think all members that were registered to go. Did everybody get one? I believe because I registered you before you changed your mind. I do have copy. I have 1 copy. I can make copies of.
The reason I'm-
Today.
Pardon me?
Mine just came today.
Okay, yeah, mine did too. So mine's still in the mail. The intent is, there's 9 resolutions in here, and we vote on those. So when our members go and attend this conference in November, they can vote reflecting what the school committee recommends. We're not going to make it as clunky as I made it last time. We're not going to put the whole motion in there. We'll just have the title, and we can discuss it in the meeting and be done with it, because it took us a good hour to get through it. This last meeting. And the only other thing I wanted to state was relative to that subcommittee that I recommended that policy look into. I've heard nothing but good things about the majority of the students in this district and how respectful they are. And I know this, we're not going to have 100% because people will be people. So I just wanted to state that I've heard things from teachers who have subbed in this district that came in from other schools that have made especially, well, in all of them.
So there's a visitor.
It's empty.
Phew, I get to leave because he flung a bug at me. That's outside the rule.
You got that on camera.
It's draw the line. Goodbye.
Well, that committee can look into the budget.
I'm done.
It's my cue.
There's a big one over here.
Motion to adjourn. Get out of here before the bugs overrun us. Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, this meeting stands adjourned at 8:24.